he was not in their world. He had his arm out and he kind of smiled awkwardly and just not really participating emotionally, not comfortable in just doing in being with his brothers and having some fun socially. So Scott was really shut down with his communication, with his facial expressions, with his movement. Um, he spent a lot of time, as far as I could tell, like we didn't have a lot of verbal communication, just shut down and kind of like overwhelmed. Um, Scott spent a lot of time in the basement um, with the lights down low, and that's where we would go to talk to him. If you wanted to talk to Scott, you'd go down to the basement and just spend time with him there. The thing that really got us was the spoken testimonial of one of your clients, that just like that you had video before and after, and that is exactly what we've experienced. We first started working with Holly about a year and a half ago, and the change between that time and now in Scott is night and day, just completely different. People that haven't seen Scott for a couple of years, like his grandparents came out to visit just recently, and my dad just was so taken back by how much change was in Scott, how much his smile came through, and how much eye contact he had, how just fully present he was. Um, he said it was the highlight of his trip. And honestly, that's one of the highlights of my day every day is coming home and finding Scott actually available, present, and so much more comfortable. It got harder. It seemed like it was harder than ever for Scott, and just frustration. At school, he got more and more shut down to where he was sitting outside the classroom. He wouldn't go into the classrooms.
Or I'd walk out sometimes when I had walked in.
Right. Yeah, so I would go to school to pick him up, and I'd find him in the hall. I'm like, "How long have you been here?" And he'd say, "All day long." That's just heartbreaking. I'm like, "This is like a school that's designed for people with Asperger's. How are they not getting you into a class, and how are you so uncomfortable that you're in the?" But it didn't do any good to get after Scott or to pepper him with questions. So it was kind of just again still painful.
It was it was a difficult um, thing to get through. I'd often feel my senses and my strength fading. My vision would black out in the shower frequently, and it was a dangerous place.
Hmm.
And swimming, uh, I can't exactly get out of a pool and go on living my life. So I have to be ready to go through that and commit time to showering also. It was a very um, it was a very present risk, very present threat that kept me from doing a lot of stuff.
How he felt, and he was more aware of what was going on physically for himself and what his needs were and how he could meet those needs, and all of that, it was just happening in layers as he would meet with you over time, and then um, just practicing some of those exercises on his own and finding so much more resilience. His psychiatrist, he just had this huge smile, and he just was like, wow. Just even the first interactions with Scott as he greeted him and we came into the office, and he just said, wow, I can hardly believe this is the same guy, and He just talked about how different that you seemed and looked, and how good you seem, and you were able to express a lot of things in that conversation, which your dialogue was more limited in past visits because communications were more challenging, just harder to know what you wanted to express and how, and to do it. But he really did. He felt like you just seemed like a different person altogether. So we did talk about the work that he'd done with you to the doctor. And I remember Scott trying to decide where to start as in explaining to the doctor what this therapy had done for him. And he said, well, she basically helped me to feel safe. That was his opening comment.
When you would invite me to try and make a sound when I was in that when I was in a more vulnerable physical state, I guess. I think you probably know that it's probably a textbook expectation almost for you, some things that will help, but you still held space for me for so many months.
Mm-hmm.
You gave me opportunities, and I got comfortable with what I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do what I was ready for. And eventually you asked, did he make a sound?
That's right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Because I did.
Yeah.
Just a little sound. And I can make sound now.
He sure can.
For a while, talking to people was like impossible. Trusting people was like unfathomable.
Is what you're saying, as well as it being freeing and validating and healing, there's an aspect of it that allowed you to be you. So we weren't squishing you in a box.
Yeah. Man, the day I was like in the car with my dad, and he was like, oh, I gotta go get something else from inside. And I'm like, what was in my head is I should say something like, okay, right. What was waiting to come out of my mouth was okie dokie. And I'm like, who let this in? I was not silly for so long, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like fun.
Yeah.
I like fun now.